partnership with the Koru Strategy Group. And I have some friends here that are joining us to talk about how this cohort has been going from over almost, oh my gosh, we're coming up on almost a year, almost. So we have been in these sessions and working together to reboot our teams. And so I have some people here that are going to share about that. And so before we get started with that, I am Tanika Canardo, and I am one of the professional learning specialists at Keep Indian Learning with CIESC. And I want my friends to tell you all who they are. So Dr. Pena, can you go ahead and go first?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jorge Pena. I'm a professor at Loyola University Chicago, and I'm a DataWise School Improvement Coach with Koru Strategy Group.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Jonathan, yeah.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Winslow. I'm our District Elementary Instructional Coach and Assistant Principal at MSD of Steuben County in Angola, Indiana.
Thank you.
Yes, and I am Masimba Rasununguko Taylor. I am the proud principal of Warren Central High School on the far east side of Indianapolis, Indiana, and I am excited to be here.
Thank you all. So we're going to just jump right in because I want to make sure that teams that are considering this process and considering this experience can get just a snapshot of what you all have experienced, and Dr. Pena, what you have experienced watching these teams go through the process. So we can just jump right in. And if I can just do a question maybe for Jonathan and Dr. Taylor for you all to respond to, and then a follow-up for Dr. Pena, and then we can flow if you have anything to say in response to each other. No worries, we're just friends talking. So if Jonathan and Dr. Taylor, if you can describe a game-changing practice that your team was able to refine collaboratively as a result of the participation in the monthly virtual coaching sessions and the workshops.
Yeah, we've really latched on to, at the beginning here, the first portion of the year is basically just getting meetings set so that they're very intentional and purposeful. And we've had the most amount of time to have impact in that area within our elementary buildings at this point. And it's really been a game changer because we've been able to set some norms with all of our teams within our elementary schools, which was definitely needed. And then also setting some intentional plans for meetings moving forward has been really great as well. As an admin team, we've been attending sessions, and we've been bringing that back to admins that haven't been available, and then also our grade level chairs. And so we're using those rolling agendas with everyone in our district at this point. And it's been really exciting to just be able to go into a meeting knowing exactly what's going to happen, and also set those time limits so that we can stay on course over the course of those meetings.
Perfect. Dr. Pena, I see like a highlighted face. You have like a smile on your face, like a proud coach. Dr. Taylor, you want to share?
Well, one of the things I love, what was just mentioned, was that knowing what is going to take place in a meeting. And I think what we loved is being able to reflect on what has already taken place. So there's some benefits if you haven't used running agendas to using them, because you can always go back and reflect on what's taken place, what still needs to get done. And for us, I think the biggest thing coming out of rebooting is really thinking about how we were meeting and how to make sure and ensure that it was efficient. We had several people on our team who hold different positions and hold different types of meetings. And so it was interesting to see how each went back to implement what they took from the rebooting sessions. But the biggest thing I think that the entire team would say is being more intentional about the time and making sure that that time is sacred, and that whatever it is we had planned to accomplish during that time is in fact accomplished. To the best of our ability, you know, things happen.
Yeah, you got to add that little clause in there.
Yeah. Things happen.
Yes, Dr. Pena, from your perspective, what's been game changing as you've coached these teams and watched these teams go through the process?
What I've loved and experienced is the teams experiencing their own journey of their own improvement, and how each time we get together, there is this feedback of their own learning process, seeing them strengthen their PLCs and teams back in their settings with these intentional collaborative practices. And having wise meetings is a mindset shift as to how we approach meetings. It's not simply using a template that we call a rolling agenda, is how do we live our norms in our meetings? What is the evidence of that? How are we following up from our previous steps, the way that Dr. Taylor described? What evidence do we have? And that approach to meetings, because it's all about improving teaching and learning, and the work of administrators especially occurs in meetings, and in our school leaders who are involved and teachers who are involved. So a game changer for me is observing the teams adopt and really embrace intentional collaboration.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you. The main word I hear in that is efficiency, just efficiency all around, and how far we can get if that is the forefront of our minds. That's wonderful. One of the major gains from the Rebooting Teams experience with Dr. Westman and Dr. Pena is strengthening the process of using data to impact change. So can you describe how the data analysis process has shifted for your team, Jonathan and Dr. Taylor?
So one of the things that probably was my favorite the last session, just really diving into having conversations about data. Our district is pretty large. My building is a small town. And so the conversations that are had is around, well, how can we actually really dive into the data? Like, what is the data really telling us? And then what is it then that we can do with that information? So the process or the protocol that was used was very helpful in that it really changed our thinking in terms of how we were phrasing the question. So I love the learner-centered approach, then taking a look at it from a teacher-centered approach to actually get down to what is the evidence. And so I think, again, it was very intentional. And so I think that's what our team really jumped on that. I think I saw more energy around that piece and coming back to try to determine, okay, so what do we do now? More importantly, we thought that it was something that we could actually bring back to our teachers who may not be in a leadership capacity and that they're running meetings, but how they could potentially use that to be able to think about the data that was coming out of their classrooms too. So a larger scale, how do we look at this or use this protocol from a district or a school building standpoint, but then also how could teachers take this into their classroom? So we're excited to see where it goes over the next couple of months as we get ready to go into the next school year. Because, we've already started planning for that, of course.
Yes, of course. Wonderful. Jonathan, what about you?
I echo a lot of what Dr. Taylor is sharing. The 8-step process for DataWise is really a great tool and a roadmap for us moving forward. We oftentimes are buried in lots of different data pieces. And I think this protocol really helps us identify one priority area and really kind of circle around and figure out how we can fix the issue. And the 8 steps really helps us go through that process again and again. That's the really important part of the 8-step process is as soon as you figure out one thing, figure it out, you are going through that process again to try to identify another area and see if there are other resources that you can continue to build capacity in lots of different areas and meeting the needs of learners. So we're very excited about that moving forward.
Yeah. Dr. Pena, what is your favorite protocol without giving it all to the people at once? If they want to know all the protocols, they need to sign up. But what is your favorite protocol to share with teams on their journey with the data analysis process?
A protocol with a tool that's connected to it is the Notice and Wonder protocol, where we take a look at a piece of evidence, a piece of data. It could be from an assessment, it could be from samples of student work, and we ask ourselves, what do we notice about the evidence that is in front of us, and then what questions do we wonder about. And that protocol is used with a mental model called a ladder of inference, where we want to, our intuition is to jump to conclusion and to action because we care about our students. But before we commit to action, we want to stay low on that metaphorical ladder by just looking at what the evidence shows before us without adding judgment or even interpretation. This is what I notice. And then I wonder the following. And then we slowly climb up the ladder by asking wonder questions. And I'm noticing through our multiple interactions, teams use notice and wonder in their conversations, in their meetings. And that is a great way to reinforce not only collaboration, but a relentless focus on evidence.
Nice. Thank you so much. Because I love that question and the response that I get from even presenters, because there are sometimes your favorite comes from how impactful it is when you are helping teams to use it. So I saw the response in Dr. Taylor and Jonathan, like, yeah, I remember that. And that one was a good one to use. In what ways, for Dr. Taylor and Jonathan, in what ways has this process impacted the climate and culture in the area that you work? So in your school, Dr. Taylor.
So what's interesting is at this particular session, we had a school level team and the district level team. So it's going to be interesting when we do finally get a chance to really follow up with what they took from the sessions and what we took from the sessions. But I think we all jumped onto the data piece because like I said, there's so much that we need to learn about what's happening just throughout our district. And so I think that piece with some similar protocols being used in different places across the district, I think will help us all to be on the same page. And so it'll be interesting to see where it goes, but I thought that was a unique strategy to have a school level team as well as the district level team. So these are the folks that really are telling us what we need to be doing, but to all have us all share in this same strategy or mindfulness in terms of thinking about what the data is saying and then what to do with the data, following an 8-step process, all of us being in that same cycle of learning is going to, I think it's going to do wonders for the school community as a whole.
Yeah, Jonathan?
Yeah, our climate and culture, I'm noticing a big difference. There's definitely some positive shifts as we've started digging into the process. First of all, and we've mentioned this, is that more purposeful feeling during meetings because everybody knows why we're there. And it's very mindful of time, which as educators, we know there's never enough time. So being really mindful of that has really been a positive shift in the climate and culture. And it's also really transparent. So all of our meetings and any data work that we're doing, the teachers know about that in advance. So it gives them time to know what's happening in that meeting before it's kind of just thrown on them in an all staff stand-up meeting. It's also provided some capacity building for teachers because there's some shared responsibility in that agenda. So we have different facilitators, we have different timekeepers and note takers throughout the process, and that allows for lots of different people to step up and step back in some situations. And then it's also provided a lot more voice because there's more different people leading those meetings. And the norms that we've set have allowed for that safe space and comfortability during that time that we're meeting together. And as we look at the data, because it's coming from a zone and one of our norms is like a judgment-free zone, lots of our teachers feel comfortable having those I notice and I wonder questions or comments because we've set that tone from the start of our meeting time together.
Yeah, thank you for that. And then Dr. Pena, as we lead into the ending of our time together, if you could tell me how ultimately the process that these 2 or these 3 teams have gone through, how it'll impact student learning, because that's the goal, right? So how can it ultimately impact student learning?
Well, I think we've heard from our 2 amazing team members here, the impact that it's having on their teams. Increased collaboration, and comfortability with evidence and data. I'm hearing them say our teachers are involved in the process, which ultimately, this is why we're here, is what happens in the classroom. Our approach is by improving and strengthening our team practices, then we improve our professional practice, which impacts how teachers engage in their work, ultimately to impact student learning.
Yeah, thank you. Now, I know that you're watching, all of you out there watching and saying, how can I get like that? How can I get those results? Well, we'll tell you. You can't join this cohort, so you can't be a part of these masterminds, but there is going to be another cohort that's available for you to register for, and it is the spring cohort of 2023, and that the first launch workshop will be taking place on May 22nd of this year. So if you want to start this process and you gather some people from your either school team or district team, then you can be a part of this process with Koru Strategy Group as well. And I am just going to share my screen so that you can see. I believe I'm sharing. Everybody see my graphic? Yes. Yeah. Okay, great. So this is the graphic for that. And it has the information for you, the on-site kickoff at CIESC, and that takes place May 22nd. This is always on Twitter. I'm always putting it up there. So if you follow me at Canardo Tanika on Twitter, then you will always be able to see this information or follow and Keep Indiana Learning, and you can register using that link. Thank you so much. I really appreciate, and I understand how time sensitive our days are. So I appreciate my representatives from our teams joining us. And Dr. Pena, thank you so much for taking the time. Thanks. Everyone, have a great day.
Everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.